Trust is built in little moments. And why that's important to realize is those little moments do add up to something. It's something almost tangible if you imagine that it's filling, as Brene Brown talks about, a marble jar. Imagine each piece of trust is filling that jar. Trust is also lost incrementally. When there's little mistakes and things made, the reason that building so much trust is so important is because it allows us to build generous assumptions, the benefit of the doubt to those we work with, those we buy products from. And that's no exception with Digital Extremes and Warframe, because within their team, they were able to actually build that trust, to take the time to share a vision and to work and win together, so that when they did lose together and that there were those chances to either let failure dictate one way or the other, that generous assumption was made. As a creator, when you're able to leverage that kind of quality, both internally and externally, that level of trust is built so that when mistakes are made, they aren't, for lack of a better term, damning. They don't end and lead you to a place where you can't come back from. A lot of times they allow you a chance to pivot and adjust.
Trust really is a currency. You earn it in the small moments, you lose it in the small moments, but that's the beauty of it, is you can always earn more and more. There's no limit to how much you can have. So as you go through and you're working through things, understand that. Trust is built in the little moments, it's built over time. What that means is if you're just starting out, people aren't going to buy in immediately. Why should they? Relationships are built in the little moments and built over time. Give them the time to trust in you. Give them reasons to trust in you. With that said, is as you're going on, you're going to trip, you're going to stumble. That's okay. Leverage your audience. Learn from it. What mistakes did you make? You can use that opportunity to reach your hand out, to acknowledge, I did mess up, but I want to learn from you. How can I improve?
So what I really like when you talk about this is that it makes me think of how this thing is banked. It is adding currency. You're spending and earning it as you go. But the more you can build, the more that other people are willing to give you that extended credit, to take a leap of faith with you, to give you that extended benefit of the doubt. The difference is much like a card. If you're not able to pay that back in kind, the interest will kill you. And eventually you'll never regain that trust. You'll never catch back up.
And how cool it was to see that with Warframe, of how they were really going in it. And they had that track record before with their previous games, with Unreal Tournament, to start building that trust with various IPs that they worked with. But here was their chance. They started building a reputation for themselves, but here was their chance to go out on their own with their own IP to develop something. And if you listen to the story, the first time they actually get money in, those first $1,500, not enough to pay for the studio, but it reaffirmed that people were willing to trust them and to put money to back their project that they're working on.
Well, absolutely, because there's the trust from a consumer level, but that trust internally. There are some metrics and things that show that with trust, people are more efficient. They're able to deliver. There's a level of security and comfort in that trust that allows them to cut out all that extra distraction and get to it.
And so with that, there's an interesting article that came out at the Harvard Business Review. It was a study that they did on the mathematical relationship between trust and economic performance. And what they found is with those who had greater trust with their companies in comparison to those who had low trust with their companies, they reported 74% less stress, 106% more energy at work, 50% higher productivity, 13% fewer sick days, 76% more engagement, 29% more satisfaction with their lives, and 40% less burnout. I mean, how crucial is trust to our whole well-being, to our ability to perform, to function, and to deliver on the things we want to, especially if we're going after those dreams, how important it is to trust in ourselves.
Well, no, it's incredibly important. Trust is a currency towards belief. And with that, you have to realize that while we love to live in our dreams, that without that trust, it's hard to actually make them come true. Believing in your own mission is only one component of that. Having the actual belief that it can actually happen is a whole nother one. And when you're getting other people to collaborate with you to bring this to fruition, they need to not be weighed down and anchored by the fear that these things have no possibility of even coming true. You can love an idea, you can love a belief, but if you don't have the trust that it even has a chance to happen, then you're already dead in the water. There's no way of really making it happen. And while belief and trust can be contagious, so often negativity and a lack of belief is even more contagious. So being able to actually look at that from a metric standpoint, something controllable, something that's deliverable and incremental, building that trust is not as hard as it may seem if you realize it is done in those smaller moments, that it is something that isn't just a one-size-fits-all equation that happens all in one big piece, light switch on, or lost all in one piece in light switch off.
Right. Building trust for yourself is so crucial. You have to build trust in yourself. It was such a, I think, an interesting concept for me to recognize is often how much I am my own worst enemy. Is that I constantly beat myself up because I know all the ins and outs. I know when I fall short, when I make mistakes, when I'm giving half of the effort that I could put in, when I'm cutting corners. I know all that, but you have to be willing to take the time to build trust with yourself. So recognize the things you're good at and recognize the successes you have. It means being fair with yourself. Set up clear goals. How hard or how easy is it to have your dream, to think this is what I want to go for, but in saying that, you're not really clear on what it is you want to accomplish. So be specific with what you want to accomplish. Be clear with yourself, and then just be vulnerable. Be vulnerable and honest enough with yourself to recognize when you mess up, when you could have done better, when maybe something's not working. Is to sit down, analyze, develop a plan, and move forward.
All right, and with Digital Extremes and Warframe, what we see is that in those moments, that's just setting up the development of getting from the beginning of this creative journey to the actual delivery of this product, to 2013 and this coming out. But where that seed of belief and that building of trust came from within, and then they were able to impart that and transition it into an audience, setting real expectations on what they could deliver, when they can deliver it, and trying best to adhere to it and when. And it does always happen when they can't meet those deadlines or those objective goals, or if something falls flat. Owning it, doing their best to fix it, trusting in their own vision enough to know that when criticism comes in, what is constructive versus what is white noise and should be drowned out. Acknowledging that there are things that people aren't going to like, but is it the thing? They talk about focusing on the new player experiences versus the 1,000-player experiences. There takes a level of trust not to chase what you don't have versus cultivating and growing what you've already won, and keeping those people happy while still trying to grow that audience. So no, those things come from that incremental trust and belief that you can make decisions based off of those smaller pieces. So that trust, and like all trust, is relationship based. The relationship we have with yourself and the relationship you have with others. And in this case, what you see is that trust was contagious. We talk about many times in life, when you meet people and you see them talk poorly about another person, that you realize you don't trust them not to do the same with you. And in that way, we see how reverent that Warframe and Digital Extremes have been for one another, for this project. This project, like most creative ones, has a life of its own. And when that trust and care is shown, you had people who wanted to rally and help that be a part of that. They want to be a part of this healthy ecosystem that was built, not be a part of something that's just negative and bashing, which is all too common in creative projects, especially in gaming. But what we really see is that there was a trust in putting themselves out there, being vulnerable to an audience with this imperfect thing that they had to rush in 9 months to get out, knowing it was only a small piece of the vision they had. To trust both their audience, but that audience to then build a trust in being able to what they can provide to helping this game be a reality as it continually evolves.
And that's what you have to remember is, who are you building trust with? It's people. You're building trust with people. And how is that built? Go all the way back when you were in elementary school, kindergarten. You built trust with those other kids by talking with them, engaging with them. And that's what's so fundamentally crucial to building trust, is so much of it is rooted within clear communication. That's what Warframe thrives and excels at, is they're constantly communicating with their audience. They're listening to them. That's another thing about communication. It's not simply talking. It's both speaking and listening, and making sure both parties are understanding where the other is coming from. So there's a true dynamic there where Warframe truly leverages their audience. And there's so much to be learned from them.
So trusting that audience, but also being aware of what they're doing. You have to acknowledge your limitations, your weaknesses. It's no secret to them that they were new to almost every piece of this. They had relied on a publisher to put out their games before. When you take that kind of endeavor on to self-drive yourself, as whether you're an independent creative or someone who has a larger company, there is a lot of things that come with that. The legal fees, the acknowledging things and traps that you weren't even aware of, but believing that you could do it. If you didn't have it to build it, they didn't have a community team or customer service. Those things were always handled externally by other mediums. They had to go in and actually from scratch build their own community team with Reb Ford and some of these other pieces, Steve Sinclair, and being very, very open and transparent with their audience. I mean, they were breaking new ground. Free to play model for this type of game was very new and incredibly wrought with minefields of pay to win and all these things that we still hear today. But how do they trust in the process of at least doing it, and then knowing that they can live in that era where things are in a racer, in a time where people on social media are so quick to condemn you? When can you still take chances, knowing that if you've built that trust with an audience, that you have the ability to pivot back, say, we made a mistake, this is not what we want to be, and be able to execute something that is closer to that real vision?
And that's part of with Warframe and Digital Extremes is recognizing their own strengths. Is they recognize that they were, I think, really people focused. They recognize that the life of their game revolved around their audience and their players. And so they held on to that value. They held on to that vision. They knew who they were, and they stayed true to that in the entire process. Which, what that then does is that really clearly communicates authenticity. Is people then start understanding and knowing, okay, this is who Digital Extremes is, who they are. They are a company who truly listens and cares about what I have to say. Doesn't mean I always have the right thing to say. Doesn't mean I always have the right solutions. But I clearly see they're listening and they're engaging and they're moving forward.
Well, right. And part of moving forward is knowing what is the way to move forward. There was a point where they had to believe enough in this project, and also those people, the people who were helping bring everything else to life for this whole time, to not lay off, to turn what at that time was a fiscal disadvantage of having over 200 people on a team into an advantage later once they actually started making money, that because of the needs to keep content out and to keep delivering, that they had a glut, a boon. It's amazing how sometimes the things we look at as temporary weaknesses become a persistent strength. And trusting in a vision and trusting that this is people, not just numbers, that they've treated both their internal stakeholders, but also those who engage with their game as more than just a way to earn money, but as actual people. If you can put people over product, that is the minimum barrier to entry, in my opinion. It's when you can actually create experiences based off of that trust and invest in both your people and the people you want to engage with you. That's how you win, and win right.
Yeah, quality will always sell, much more than cutting corners, lowering the bottom line. Quality will always win in the long game, and that's what's so fascinating about Digital Extremes. They're playing the long game. They're not going for the quick wins. They're going for sustainability and endurance. But that's what I have to say about what really summarizes belief in building trust. It comes with acknowledging your weaknesses. It comes with recognizing your strengths, and it comes with having a clear vision to know where to go.
Absolutely. And what all these things equate to is a buy-in culture. Buy-in both internally and externally, where all people involved feel like they're getting fairly treated, that we're winning together. What we find with things like comic books, movies, games, things that we're truly passionate about from a recreational level, is we're so invested in them that we want them to succeed so that we can keep enjoying them. We want to be a part of that success. We're patrons to it. We do what we can to help them win, so long as we don't feel exploited. And in an era of exploitation, this is one of those outliers that I really enjoy looking at, is the ability to keep shaking that hand, giving those high fives, giving their customer base what they want, is to not be treated like a customer, to be treated as a partner in this, as somebody who can actually really engage, and to know that that goes both internally and externally, that buy-in is unilateral. And for me, I really enjoy watching that, and feeling that I'm not sold.
Right. So it's truly a symbiotic relationship. When Warframe delivers quality content, I win. And when I communicate and give my feedback, they then develop an even better game, so they win. So it creates this true ecosystem where everyone is a part in this system. I like I recently was reading The Starbucks Experience, which is a book that goes through some of the values of Starbucks and why they've been such a successful company. And one of the things that they do is they make everyone a partner in the company. So
Mhm.
everyone has a power and ability to shape the company for the better. And that's what we're seeing within Warframe is the player base has that power with their voice, and Warframe gives them that power by listening to that voice.
So what we find here is when you're truly a partner in this, you feel like you were a friend to this endeavor. And when it comes to making creative things, we always need those friends, the people who will be there, waving a flag, celebrating your wins, and helping dust you off in your losses. Because what friend would you not help up if they were down? And that's the difference here is I don't feel like I'm being sold to. And because of the trust that was built piece by piece, in times before I ever knew what Warframe was, that I didn't think of digital extremes those 20 years prior, or even the first years of the game before I jumped in. The difference being that when I see them now, I believe in what they're doing so much that if they do stumble, instead of keeping them, pushing them down below the threshold that they can get back up, I'm more likely to extend a hand and do what I can, both as a fan but as a friend, to be able to make this happen. That was the trust that helped fuel the belief in something more than just a game, a relationship, and one that I want to keep building upon and doing my part to help succeed.